Thank God it's Friday. This is the final working day for this week. Well, it's 10 a.m. and it's 55 minutes of current and relevant business conversations. That's what we do here on Business Morning. You're welcome to this episode. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Well, let's start off with what's going on with the grain space. Chicago wheat jumped almost 2% on Friday, while corn gained ground as a drone attack on Moscow raised fears of further escalation in Russia-Ukraine war, which could reduce world grain supplies. A Ukrainian drone attack damaged a building in central Moscow earlier in the day, causing a blast that was heard across the business district of the Russian capital, according to Russian officials. And some eyewitnesses who were also there. And of course, we expect this to affect the price of grain around the world, as Russia is the world's biggest wheat exporter. Soybeans climbed more than 1% with additional support from forecasts of dryness in key parts of the U.S. Midwest. The most active wheat contracts on the Chicago Board of Trade climbed 1.8% to $6.26 for a bushel, and corn rose 1% to $4.90 for 3/4 of a bushel. Soybeans added 1.2% to $13.46 for 1/4 of a bushel. Soybeans have climbed almost 3% this week, on track for their first weekly gain since late July, while corn has risen 0.8% this week. Wheat is largely unchanged this week. Expectations of India importing wheat also supported prices. Edible oil now. Malaysian palm oil futures are set for their first weekly gain in 4 as prices rose further on the back of a weaker ringgit and stronger rival edible oils. The benchmark palm oil contract for November delivery on the Postal Malaysia Derivatives Exchange rose 9 ringgit to 3,932 ringgit per metric ton in early trade, extending gains for a 4th session. For the week, the contract has risen 5.9% so far. Let's take a look at the fundamentals. The European Union said that it had launched an investigation into whether biodiesel from Indonesia was circumventing EU duties by going through China and Britain. And that, of course, will have an impact on price. The ringgit, which is palm's currency, has declined 1.2% against the dollar this week, making the edible oil cheaper for buyers holding foreign currency. Now, Dalian's most active soy oil contracts rose 1.1%, while its palm oil contracts gained the same percent. Soy oil prices on the Chicago Board of Trade were up 0.6%, rising for a 5th session as hot and dry weather conditions in the United States Midwest could reduce production. Palm oil is affected by price movements in related oils as they compete for a share in the global vegetable oils market. Crude oil now. Prices looked set for a snap, a 7-week winning streak on Friday, as concerns about China's slowing economic growth and the possibility of more U.S. interest rate hikes outweighed signs of tightening supply. Major benchmarks were slightly higher, with the U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude rising 22 cents to $80 a barrel, while Brent was up 8 cents to $84 a barrel. The 7-week winning streak was the longest for both benchmarks this year. Brent futures rose about 18% and WTI by more than 20% in the 7 weeks that ended August the 11th to the highest levels in months, before pairing some gains this week when both fell by 3%. The United States Federal Reserve's focus on containing inflation amid stronger than expected economic data was keeping a lid on oil prices, which have risen sharply in the recent weeks due to concerns over supply. The U.S. Labor Department yesterday, Thursday, reported the number of Americans filing new claims for jobless benefit fell in the last week, suggesting the still tight employment market could prolong the Fed's tightening campaign to cool the economy. That report followed similarly upbeat economic data earlier in the week, including U.S. retail sales, which suggested that the Fed may have to stick with higher rates for longer. Investors fret that higher borrowing costs could impede economic growth and in turn reduce overall demand including for oil. And back here in Nigeria, just last night, the Central Bank of Nigeria introduced a foreign exchange price verification system designed for importers to have access to forex. According to a statement from the CBN's Trade and Exchange Department, a price verification report from the portal is now mandatory for all Form M requests, while it takes effect from August the 31st, 2023. The statement further notes that there's been a successful conduct of the pilots run and various trainings have been held with all the banks. Consequently, the price verification system, PVS, is set to go live, and that will be on the 31st of August. The Indonesia ambassador to Nigeria, Ambassador Uzra Harap, says that the trade volume between his country and Nigeria has dropped, and that's because of high demand for crude oil and other commodities from Nigeria, as he vows to balance up the trade. He was addressing journalists in Abuja at an event to mark the 78th National Day of Indonesia. Ambassador Harap disclosed that the Indonesian economy is returning to normal after the COVID-19 pandemic, and both countries are planning to deepen collaboration on vaccine production, trade, and education.
This trade, a little bit, to be honest, I told you that we are deficit because we import many crude oil. $3.8 million, and we export only 500,000 US dollar. But the other sector, we have a lot of collaboration, the trade, something like for the next, we have a planning to establish the vaccine factory here together after we have granted the vaccine to Nigeria, and we have already have a planning. And several weeks ago, the Ministry of Health staff came to Indonesia, led by the Permanent Secretary, so talk and also visited to BioVaccine, BioPharma. BioPharma is to produce the BioVaccine, pentavalent vaccine. And we talk very seriously about how to establish the corporation, especially for establish the what we call it factory for to produce vaccine here.
So apart from oil, of course, Nigeria does have other resources to export, which you could do with Indonesia. Nigeria has about 44 different types of mineral resources in commercial quantities, which are found in over 500 locations in the 36 states of the country, as well as the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. In 2021, the National Bureau of Statistics said that Nigeria produced about 89 million tons of solid mineral resources. And where are they? How much of it has gotten into the purse of the government? I guess Mr. Dele Alake will have a lot to do with that. But for this morning, let's look at it from the private sector's eye with someone who is involved in exporting solid minerals and other agro-commodities. We have with us in our Abuja studio right there, Mr. Ibidapo Lawal, the founder and chief executive officer at Nivea Limited. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Lawal.
Good morning.
So I know that you deal more with export, or at least you do handle the solid minerals also. So when you heard that Mr. Dele Alake has been named the minister to handle that sector, what were your first thoughts?
Looking at his background, where he's coming from, and some of the things he has done, I think, I believe that he will be able to do great in this industry, if he's actually supported by the government. So I look forward to some of the great initiatives he's going to bring forth to the sector.
Yeah, well, in this case, he is the government, so we expect him to make things work. But, I mean, what about this issue of illegal mining? How bad or deep is it in the country, in the sector?
So actually, you have a lot of the mining done still being artisanal, and you have a lot of, that's quietly unregulated. We need to have the new minister bring in the informal sector to capture that into the mining sector properly. So by actually bringing these artisanal miners into the formal sector, that's gonna help.
Well, I would have asked for the process, but let's stick to your area now. I know that you do more of the exports. How do you get them? Because you just talked now that mostly it's done by artisans, of course with crude equipment, which of course limits the quantity that should be. How do you get it? Do you work with them? Is there a middleman? How does it work really?
So basically, what we do is we actually have buying centers in several states in Nigeria where we aggregate the minerals from. And some of those people, even though they actually still work, manually or use, I'll say like semi-mechanized equipment to mine these products, we aggregate from various centers and then, test these products before we export them out of the country. So that's how it works. You have like aggregation centers in Ebonyi. We also have in Jos Plateau State, you have in Nasarawa, Benue, and all those places where minerals are mined in Nigeria.
You have a lot of middlemen, in between the miners before it even gets to export.
Yes, that's correct. Because before we export, we need to have some of the processing done. So you have a lot of small processing centers, like in Jos, you have what they call tin sheds, where even though these artisanal miners, after they've mined the product, they have to take to these processing centers to concentrate the minerals, add value, before then they bring to our buying center in Plateau State, before we now aggregate, into container loads and export. So you have different tin sheds. I don't know, maybe in Plateau State, there should probably be more than 50 tin sheds. In Bauchi, the same. So that's how you have a lot of middlemen, collecting from the artisanal miners that have buying centers. They process and then aggregate. We aggregate and then we export to destination countries in China or Malaysia, depending on the products.
Help us understand what you mean by processing, because a lot of Nigerians have the impression that our resources are exported raw. So when you say processing, what is that?
So typically, like if you look at it, for instance, our number one product as a company is tin concentrates, right? When tin is mined directly from the ground, you think that the grade is probably less than maybe 1%. By the time they do some form of processing, at the tin sheds, we move from like a hull, that's the tin, from less than 1% to about 65% concentrate, which is what we export internationally to one of the largest smelters in the world. So there has to be there has to be an upgrade of the ore. They has to go to some concentration. You use machines like magnetic separators. They use air floats, to improve the grade, and then before it meets the export requirement. But if you're just going to take the tin ore directly 1%, you can't export that. So that's what I'm talking about in terms of the upgrade.
Okay, but we do know that when they get out of the country, then they're being turned into commodities that we repurchase into the country. Any hope of, adding value to that extent? Do you see it close by?
Well, these are some of the things we're exploring at the moment. Where we're thinking that instead of actually exporting tin concentrates, can we make the tin ingots here? But you also think about it that this kind of projects actually require, you need a lot of capital to be able to do such. But as a company, we are also looking into, manufacturing finished products. We have, so these are some of the things we're currently exploring. And we have an aluminum and copper recycling plant. We're doing something in Ogun State just to backward integrate, and that project should come on stream next year instead of just exporting, just raw products only. So this is one of the things we're working on.
Yeah, that'll be very nice. We really look forward to that. But is capital the only hurdle that you have, adding value to these commodities before they're exported?
Can you come again?
I was asking, you mentioned capital, and I asked if capital is the only hurdle to, the value chain, adding value to these commodities before they are exported.
Well, capital is not the only issue. Apart from that, you also have the technical expertise. You have issues like the technology know-how. So if you don't have a competent hand to actually execute such projects, you're gonna have problems. Like even for the project you're working on, we have to bring in expatriates to lead the team. So out of maybe 70 employees are working at that factory. When it's built, about 12 of them they are going to be expatriates because we don't have the local resource to be able to manage such projects. So even for most of the mining companies in Nigeria, you still see a lot of expatriates. Either go to a gold mine, maybe in Kwara, that is owned by a friend. You have expatriates working there, majorly Chinese. You also see like in different areas, maybe it's so you have you have the technical know-how, you have the capital. You have like other things like, FX instability. You have like the other things like port congestion. And there's so many other factors that you have to actually deal with when it comes to, setting up a proper factory that you can add value, not just capital.
So the issue of skills actually catches my attention. Is it because we do not have lecturers or technical schools that can transfer those skills to the youth, or what?
Well, you know that we're not going to say just because you don't have lecturers. Like some of these things are new, or they're going to be like in Nigeria. So maybe that is going to be first time, or you don't even have the. So like you want to set up like tin concentrates now, the smelting technology. So you have like some people use ISA smelt or some of those things. There is nothing like that in Nigeria. The technology is also expensive. So when you have to set up, you also have to, get the technology from outside the country, bring people that have the technical know-how, that have done it before, because it's a huge investment. You probably put in to set up a tin smelter, you're probably going to invest about $50 to $100 million, depending on the capacity. So you don't want to take such a risk without having adequate hands to manage it. But with time, you have the technology, you have the knowledge transfer from foreigners to the locals. And with time, the locals will be able to execute or run these factories without any issues. So it's just something that gradually we get started, and then from there we can move.
Yeah, but I mean, we've been saying that for many years. Let's bring the technocrats, and then they'll pass on the skills. But it doesn't feel like we're really having that result, that expected result, because if we were having that, by now, we should have our own local skills who should be able to handle these issues.
I think it's a gradual process, and I believe that with time we'll get there. Rome wasn't built in a day, but I think gradually, as we keep improving, we're going to get there.
All right, if we were to set an agenda for the minister, Mr. Dele Alake, just as he's jumping into office now, where would you expect him to look at first? What would you expect him to handle as the first, steps in office?
So I think that coming into the country, it's very important to, I would say, like, number one, try to see how to promote Nigeria as an investment destination. If you think about it, you see that a lot of mining in Nigeria is really not contributing anything to the GDP, and not as much as possible. I mean, apart from the oil. So this needs to be done. We have to showcase, the products and minerals we have. We have to encourage investment in this sector, and that would also help the country, with the recent issues we've had with the FX challenges, because there'll be foreign exchange earnings from this project. So I expect the minister to do that. And also the second thing I expect him to do is to encourage import substitution for some of the products that are currently being imported into the country that can be mined locally, like barite, like some iron ore, things that, the oil and gas industry use. So they have to, I think there's some policies in place already to discourage importation of this product, but we also have to encourage import substitution. This would reduce the pressure on the FX demand for this product, and also help create direct and indirect employment. And in addition, the government can actually, get revenue and then also help diversify our portfolio and not really concentrate on just earning from crude oil. So these are some of the things I expect him to really focus on. And lastly, he should actually try to see how to bring in the informal sector to the formal sector, capture that sector of the industry, so that the government can generate revenue, and try to see how we can grow that industry.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Ibidapo Lawal, the Chief Executive Officer at Nivea Limited. We do hope Mr. Delalake is listening and he will put this into his to-do list in recent time. But thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. Thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye. So talking about those skills that we need in different areas, we'll delve into that, but that'll be after this break. So stay with us here on Business Morning.
A historic and significant milestone as Optimus Bank announces itself as a new digital-led national commercial bank focused on driving financial inclusion within Nigeria and subsequently beyond our borders.
It's good to have you here, sir.
Governor Sanwo-Olu is here and challenges the bank to leapfrog their competitors.
This ceremony is a testament to the spirit of innovation, collaboration that also defines our state. I'm sure, like they've said, the only thing that they can do now is to be very innovative, is to be very smart, so that they can leapfrog and catch up with all of the big boys in the industry.
Optimus Bank here in Lagos. Thank you.
Inside the facility is a fascinating banking hall, customer care experience space, seminar hall, lunchroom, and more. The offices are also top-notch, fully equipped to enhance smooth transactions.
A beacon of hope.
Earlier, at a press briefing, Chairman of the bank, Mr. Ogogo Akpata, highlights the bank's vision, while the Managing Director, Mr. Ademola Odeyemi, says the bank's strategic ambition includes empowering businesses and growth of Nigerians. But that's not all.
We are poised to leverage the latest digital technologies and innovations to revolutionize banking services in Nigeria, making them accessible to all, especially the underserved communities. We understand the critical role that financial inclusion plays in driving economic growth and empowering individuals and businesses to achieve their full potential.
To all our customers, I assure you that Optimus Bank will always be there for you, supporting you through every stage of your journey and empowering you to take that leap towards a brighter tomorrow. We have crafted products tailored to your specific needs, all in a bid to deliver new experiences and unique solutions.
As a financial services platform that recognizes the core needs of Nigeria's diverse customer base, the bank says it has built intuitive products that showcase simple features and practical solutions.
Welcome back to watching Business Morning here on Channels Television. Well, the preceding conversation was on skills, and we saw the need for skills. Well, KPMG has stated that Nigerian unemployment rate had increased to 37.7% in 2022, and it's expected to go up further to 40.6%. That's about 4 to 5 million new entrants into the Nigerian job market every year, unlike the United States, where we see that that is dropping. And we know that everybody cannot do a white-collar job, wait to be paid salaries. So how do we get the skills to bridge this gap, to create more employment? Well, we have joining us here in the studio Mr. Samson Olatunde, the founder of Knowledge Digest Africa. Mr. Olatunde, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, so I mean, it's scary when we look at these numbers, about 40.6, even about 40% of the Nigerian population, and we know that majority of Nigerian population are the youths. If they are plunged into unemployment at the end of this year, I mean, we could expect a lot of insecurity because they get desperate and people have to survive.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it has to do with a lot of problems that we need to first quickly look at, and then we think about the solutions. For instance, you you can hardly see, if you pick like 10 people, I can say to you categorically like 7 to 8 of them may not really know what they want to do after math, even when they're out of school. So what that means...
You're talking of graduates
now. So what that means is that there's a fundamental problem with our curriculum. Now, so if you check it from secondary school to primary secondary school institution, you have 6 years, you have another 6 years, then you have 4 years, right? So what that means is that I would have done like 17 years in acquiring formal education. And if I acquire, takes 17 years for me to acquire formal education, what that means is that I should have some knowledge base that can help me start something of my own or make me even render my skill in exchange for value in the marketplace. But you see that many of the people in school that have gone through school, they went there just because they want to pass their exams, not really about the job market, not really about them understanding who they are and then what kind of value they can have made available in the marketplace. So what that simply means is that we need to begin to think about some level of knowledge base that needs to be incorporated in our curriculum. Starting from the grassroots, primary school, what kind of extra curriculum did you need to infuse, and it becomes like a major course for you to take, so that begins to build from the primary to secondary school and to the higher institution.
You know what comes to my mind is actually, I know that parents have major roles to play. For instance,
absolutely,
as a parent, you're supposed to be able to find your child's strength and then push your child towards that area of strength. If you notice at the young age that your child has music, loves music, or the arts, or engineering, plays with... I mean, if you push your children towards that, a lot of the big names, makers of softwares and hardwares that we celebrate today are school dropouts, you know. And I do know that even for the Hollywood stars, a lot of them did not have to go through formal education. They just at a point went into acting schools and all of that. So perhaps the parents also, if they are not too busy making money.
So I agree with you, but you know that if you look at the pattern, many of our parents didn't really go through the formal education, really. And then it's also like a major factor because of the fact that their notion is always, you know, get to school, get out of school, get a job, get married. You know, it's always like around the career path. So it has made a lot of people think in that direction. Now, if not for COVID, many things that has happened, many people will not see that there are certain abilities that I have or certain things I can do just because COVID helps you understand basic things. Now, let's even look at it from the aspect of the organization. Let's say like an average CEO will want to get into the office 9 to 5. But when COVID came, they realized that you can do many things outside the office, and then they start thinking about getting more of consultants, freelancers to do many things for them, reducing cost and still getting to achieve many things they want to achieve. Now, if COVID doesn't come in space, we wouldn't have seen the ability of what many workers or many employees can do in the organization. Now, the same way it is that our parents then didn't go through the formal learning facility, and then they are thinking that if I'm going to invest in you, let me invest in you so that you can become somebody who will have this white collar job, and I can be proud of saying, oh, my child, my son
is a doctor, is a lawyer. You know?
So that didn't really bring out the entrepreneurship ability of people out, because that was like the building capacity of our parents towards us. Now, the way forward is sure that if you go through the formal education, you can only obtain like 15% skill set, and you need 85% skill set that makes you to be successful in life. And the 85% skill set you need is going to be via informal learning. That means you have to read books, you have to get to seminars, you have to get into volunteering, you have to get into mentorship and all of that. So how do you begin to think about, as a young person, think about you beyond your 15% skill set in a formal knowledge that you want to acquire? How do you begin to think about acquiring the 85% is what we should be talking about now. So how do you make use of tech to your advantage? You can be shocked that many people get into a Zoom session, Zoom meeting, and they don't even know how to mute. They don't know even how to indicate that they want to speak in a meeting. That's how bad you see when you get a graduate into a Zoom meeting and you're beginning to think about the fact that, oh, does that mean that this person has not gone through the rudiment of understanding how this technology works? So what that means to any young person listening is that in as much that we have a lot of things working against us. For instance, we don't have good environment that can enhance you to be able to achieve so much. We know that there's a lot of things going wrong in terms of the curriculum that we need to work on. But hey, you have access to learn informally. You have access to get on the YouTube, understand how things are done, try it on your own, get into sessions where you have people that are knowledgeable in that field, and begin to think about solutions to many of the things you have to do within your space.
But then you have some other discouraging factors when you talk about, go on YouTube, and a lot of people will tell you infrastructure issues, internet penetration, electricity supply, cost of data, and all of that. But is there a way we can make it more accessible, Maybe people are going to school. In school, can they infuse something into the curriculum? Can we get the teachers? I know then there used to be career counseling if you want to go into university.
It's still there.
But how effective is it? Because career counseling is actually supposed to help you find your area of strength so you can pursue it. Whether you want to go on with university, go to a technical school, or you want to follow something else. But I mean, I think those things are just there, just
for the structure's sake.
Yes.
So for me, in a way to advise many of the young people, or people that are even startups generally, because you see that many of these young persons decide to start something of their own, so we put them around.
And they do trial and error, because there's no...
So why can't we begin to think about, and that's where the collaboration comes in. I mean, government can't do everything for us, so we need to begin to think about the civic organization, think about the schools, think about the university, think about stakeholders coming together. I mean, that's one of the things we are able to look at in our own space, because we felt, why can't we have a one-stop digital knowledge bank, which we call Knowledge Digest Africa, where someone like you, who's an expert, who's been there in broadcasting for over how many years you can think about, why can't we have people like this share knowledge? So it means that I want to get into broadcasting, I want to become a presenter. What are the rudiments? What are the do's and don'ts? How can people have access to those kind of information? Now, the successful entrepreneurs that we have, how many knowledge-based information can we get from them? You'll be shocked that when you Google and you're looking for an entrepreneur in Nigeria, you will see more of the foreigners sharing tips. And those tips they are sharing, there's a lot going against for us, because we don't have an enabling environment like you have said. And somebody is telling you, oh, you can get a loan. We know that if you get into the bank, you're going to be frustrated. So how do we begin to get a one-stop knowledge digital bank that will give access to me wanting to start a business? And when I type, I have indigenous content. I have content relatable to African market. So I call it learning from African for African market. So not that learning from a developed country and you want to bring it into African market, because there's so much wrong with our own system in here. So how do we begin to have stakeholders meeting whereby I can have access to you to say, can you just share 15 minutes knowledge about some of the things I need to get to know, where are the places I need to go, who are the people I need to talk to about the fact that I want to become a presenter or I want to become a broadcaster. How do we get all of that within all of the sectors? Now, we're talking about tech now. Now, the reality is that if you are in business and you're not introducing tech to what you're doing, you're going to be out of business. If you're in business and you don't have knowledge about tech, or don't have people within your organization, or you don't have freelancers that you're working with, or stakeholders that can help you grow your business with tech, you're going to get frustrated. For instance, look at what is happening to the currency. Now, and I want to do business outside the country. If I don't have a payment gateway, what that means is that I'm going to be out of place. So how do you begin to think about alternative solutions to your payment gateway? How do you begin to think about having your own website, like your online office, as against your physical office, that people can see your product out there? How do you begin to collaborate with people like Amazon, Konga, Jumia, all of those online platforms?
So are professionals hoarding their information? So
the reality is that if I'm a startup, it will be very hard for you to have a professional giving me access. It's like that in Nigeria, because I've been in there.
No, I'm talking to you now. You are working on creating a knowledge bank.
So what has made it easier for us is that we are going through different bodies to say, okay, we want to get into ICANN. So let's go through the bodies, and can you give us an expert? But if I don't have that knowledge about how to go about it. For instance, I write a mail to you, and I know you are extremely busy, Before you can check the mail, it could take maybe a week because you are doing back-to-back production, right? And I want to interview you. Now, you don't really have the time. You want to do it, but you have a lot going on with you. So the challenge currently is, how do we begin to have stakeholders get together and say, please, we want to have different e-learning platforms where people can have access to indigenous content that can help us grow. And that's what we are building with Knowledge Digest Africa. We call it Africa's One-Stop Digital Knowledge Bank.
So is it working? I mean, your collaboration with bodies and associations?
It's really working, because now, you know, just like one of my colleagues said, the people that are founders, that have done a lot, that have built a structure, are already realizing that they are getting old and they are almost leaving. So they want to give so much now, and they are willing to share as much information. You have businesses in Nigeria as far as 20 years. How do we get the founder? How do we get the group managing director? How do we get the stakeholders to begin to share some of the tips, so that someone like me, if I want to get into your industry or into comedy industry, I can think of an Alibaba, Basket Mart. If I'm going into tech, I can think of Bosun, that is now commissioner for communication. I can begin to be a minister for communication. I can begin to think about people, support. How do we have access to them? Stakeholders meeting.
So I hope you are making the bank accessible and not, I mean, expensive for...
No, I'm not making it expensive, because what we have done is to make that platform like a go-to. Because I can't interview you and start selling the interview. But what I'm doing is what we are doing in our organization is to ensure that with Knowledge Digest Africa, once you get in there, you have access to different interviews that is teaching you how do I start, how do I scale, how do I sustain, how do I build a system. For instance, I get into the career part of it. How do I get a professional who has been there for 20 years in HR, in management, in business development? How can I get that person to share tips so that when I am in that pathway, I can learn from that person on a go. I'm not restricted, but I can have access to information on one single platform.
All right, sounds interesting. And I mean, if you make it accessible, especially to the young ones, and this is real knowledge from first-hand
people who are already
who are already in those industries and practicing, I think it will go a long way to bridge that gap. And we do hope that it works, and wish you success.
Thank you so much.
Samson Olatunde, founder, Knowledge Digest Africa. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
And wish you the best.
Yeah, bye.
All right, now, so we will take a breather, but let's first tell you about what's going on with the Nigerian Postal Service. We will tell you that they will begin the implementation of post codes and address verification system, that's AVS, you know, to address the issues of fake address, insecurity, and generate income for the government. Mr. Adepoju, who is the Postmaster General of Nigerian Postal Service, said this during a presentation of a report titled Postcode Areas Delineation and National Address System. And they're doing it in collaboration with the National Population Commission, National Space Research and Development Agency, and Office of the Surveyor General of the Federation. He says that there will be strict adherence to the federal government's policy concerning standard national addressing system.
This project holds the potential to redefine the way we connect and communicate, setting the stage for a new era of efficiency and accessibility. In a world where digital solutions and data utilization have taken center stage, an increasing number of postal operators, NIPOs included, are wholeheartedly embracing digital transformation to elevate operational efficiency in strict adherence to the federal government policy concerning a standard national addressing system. We have undertaken the adoption of alphanumeric postal system. Our ambition extends far beyond the realm of postcode. We have absolutely recognized the imperative of establishing a robust system for national address verification, perfectly aligned with the principles of the national addressing policy. This endeavor encompasses the creation of a standardized process to ensure the utmost accuracy and reliability in confirming and validating the addresses and other occupants throughout the nation. The National Digital Alphanumeric Postcode System is an initiative that has the potential to significantly improve nationwide service delivery, enhance security, and generate revenue for NIPOS and other government agencies.
It's a new era of digital economy getting attention. We hope to see the fruits. Well, now let's head to the market and see what's going on there. Yesterday, Thursday, was another bearish trade at the close of trade. The market, as the NGX closed down 0.27, and we're still on 64,448.96. The market cap is hanging very loosely there to the 35 trillion naira, 35.27 trillion naira. Let's look at others now. We can see, looking at the activity charts there, a lot of reds there. The value, these are the most important, especially the value. So the value dropped compared to the day before. There are a lot of buying interest in FBN Holding. You know, there's still a lot of story around FBN Holdings. They had the AGM, there's the courts order. The last sitting was about 2 days ago against that AGM, and it was moved to next week, Tuesday. So by next week, Tuesday, we'll find out what will happen there. These are the sectors. So a lot of those buy interests in banking, in FBN Holding. It was down. It was up, I beg your pardon. And then Dangote Sugar right there for the consumer goods. That was also up about 4%. And month to date and year to date returns are still looking positive right there. Insurance, it seems to be a new kid on the block that is getting the attention of investors, from Asher Insurance, Guinea Insurance, Sun Assurance. You know, a lot of people seem to be looking that way. Perhaps one of these days we'll dissect it and find out what the attraction is. Oil and gas has recovered. Profit taking was on it for a bit, but recovered, even though it's still, you know, really shaky at 0.06%. Now, we look at the top trades. There you have it. The people who moved it, Fidelity and then FBN Holding, moved that banking counter. Transcore, after their statement there, they've been doing some movements, as well as UBA. Now, let's go to the fixed income market and see what that looks like. We see the federal government bonds there had 33 deals valued at 15.46. And we can tell you that the overnight lending rate expanded by 176 basis points to 21.4% in the absence of any significant funding. Let's see the next one now before we get our guest, Ifoma, to join us. We should have the Treasury bond and the OMO before we go to the NESD. Anyway, so let's speak to Ifoma now. Hi, Ifoma, good morning. So we see overnight lending rates expanded. We still need some liquidity to move the market. Do we see it coming in anytime soon?
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me. So next week, we are likely to expect FAC allocation payments, and that would most likely bring down money market rates again. We know the reason why it's expanded was because of the settlement of the bond auction results. So at the beginning of the week, system liquidity levels was around 200 billion. But then after the bond auction settlement on Wednesday, it reduced to 30 billion levels. So pending next week, when we're expecting FAC allocation payments, we expect the money market rate to continue to trade at double-digit levels.
I guess another thing in the money market at this time is the FX and this new verification portal by the CBN. What are you hearing about it? What can we expect?
Well, we expect a stabilization of rates. We know that we've seen increased pressure in the FX space. It was at 780 levels last week, and it come down to 740 levels this week as the central bank cracks down on speculators. So with the portal, I expect a more stabilization in rates as the CBN continues to watch that space closely.
All right, but a lot of people believe that what we really need to bring stability is supply and not, rates fixing and all of that. That will only, serve as an artificial buffer for some time, and over time will give way again.
Oh yes, totally agree with you. And as well, there are many ways to kill a bird. So we've seen that the NNPCL has also gone into the market to collect over $3 billion in debt, and that would help to shore up our national reserves. So there are different means that the government is using to ensure that we have more supply in the markets, as well as curtailing, not curtailing, but overseeing remittance inflows and cracking down on illegal transactions. So yes, there's a lot of oversight in that space to ensure that we have more supply and also stability of our foreign exchange rates.
Yeah, but I guess the main thing will be if we just exported more of our goods and commodities, even services, and then we'll get a real increase in supply.
Oh, yes, I definitely agree with you.
All right, so I said that the $3 billion loan from NNPCL is already giving some positive impact. Like, I think the Euro bond, Nigeria's Euro bond, increased about 1.5 cents since that has been made.
Oh, yes, there has been positive announcements. There has been positive rallying in the market. So foreign investors as well as domestic investors, they are watching that space closely, and it was a very good positive indication and increased our Euro bonds in the market.
But the problem is, how long can we expect this to last? Is this a lasting solution?
Since this government is relatively new, we expect more positive news as the year goes on. The government is barely 6 months that President Tinubu has been inaugurated. So as the year goes on and as the acting CBN governor takes a broader look of macroeconomic events, as well as microeconomic events, we expect more positive reactions in the market to, help stabilize that foreign currency space.
All right, Ifeoma Ejekwe, thank you so much for giving us the insight into what's going on in the fixed income space.
Thank you.
All right, let's switch over to crypto now and see what's going on with the crypto space. We do know yesterday Bitcoin was in the news, not for very good reasons. It was down to a 2-month low at the close of trade. Close of trade, end of the day, because it doesn't close trade. So we see it now at 26,551.27, down a whole 7%. Heartbreaking for a lot of holders of Bitcoin and investors in the market generally. Ethereum almost the same rates, 6.12% down, 1,690. Imagine the green that we have. I don't even know if the camera can catch that. Just there. That's all. Not looking nice at all. Let's look at the index there. You have it. Have you ever seen the index at 37? I can't remember the last time I have seen that, 37. But guess this might also be a good time to get on the market if you have the heart for it. Remember, I guess yesterday wonders will continue like this until next year. So if you have the heart for it, let's look at the numbers now before we bring them. There you have it, Bitcoin down, Ethereum down, and XRP that used to try to surge a bit is even more than 14% down. Let's ask Solomon Amunde if he knows what happened yesterday. Solomon, good morning. I guess this talk of continuous rate hike by the United States Fed is biting into this market that was already down.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's the rate hike from the United States that's actually affecting the Bitcoin market, though. I would say Bitcoin volatility has been dropping for the past 8 weeks, and we've been ranging at a very, very tight spot for the past 8 weeks. So traders have just been on the sideline expecting to see what would happen. And yesterday, we were actually on a very critical trend line. We were testing that, which was around 28,200. So all traders were waiting to see if the trend line would hold, to know if Bitcoin would still be bullish for the next few weeks or if it was going to fail. And obviously, we saw the later, which actually it failed. And it was a no-brainer that we were going to dump to about $25,000, which was the next strong support that we had. And we saw that happen yesterday, although I personally, I felt it would happen today. Felt we might range till 1 a.m. this morning. That's when we might dump. But we saw it happen around 11 p.m. yesterday night. So everything right now is looking clearer. Traders have a clear direction of what would happen in the market. We have seen the long anticipated dump and the trend line didn't hold. So it means that we're still very much in the bear market. So right now, all traders are actually getting in, loading up their longs at around 25K and 26K dollars. But so far, so good. Nothing really has really changed for market dominance. Bitcoin is still holding almost 50% market dominance in the crypto market cap.
Yeah, but I mean, so investors at this time should be protecting themselves. What should they be doing? What moves should be on the table?
Okay, this is a very, very good time for investors to buy, because let's not forget that it was around $25,000 and we got the huge spike that took us all the way to $31,000 based on the news of ETF that would soon be approved in the US. That was the major news that sent us above 26, 27 and all the way to $30K. So for institutional investors, 25K is a very, very good position to start loading up their bags. So I would say right now, the market will be looking very appealing to investors at $25K.
Yeah, but that's investors who have a high risk appetite, because if you can drop from more than 60,000 to this, then what's the assurance that it will come back up again, that I will make my profits?
The assurance is based on the 4-year cycle, which makes us say Bitcoin do about a 2 to 3x pump after every 4 years, and which is basically because of the halving that happens every 4 years. So for the investors, they're already looking at next year halving, which is in about 7 months from now or thereabouts, we should be seeing the Bitcoin halving. And afterwards, that's followed by a pump in the price. After the next 6 to 7 months after the halving, we tend to see a good spike in the price of Bitcoin. So all investors are looking towards the halving. And I think the wait is almost over. So like I said, I expect to see investors start to DCA into Bitcoin at 25K range, while some investors might still wait to see a test of maybe 20K before they can start jumping into the market.
Our guest yesterday had said that we should expect that returns to be maybe like second quarter or half of next year. Do you also agree with that?
I didn't get the question.
Our guest yesterday had said because of the halving and all of that, that the positive move should come about maybe next year, first quarter or first half. Do you agree with that timing?
Okay. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. We would see a considerable move by second quarter of next year. But I still believe between now and the halving, we should be able to see Bitcoin get to about $38,000, $39,000 between now and the halving, which should be around March, April next year. We should see Bitcoin get to the range of about $38,000, $39,000. So whoever is waiting to buy after the halving, that person would obviously be late to the party.
All right, thank you so much, Solomon Amunde, financial market analyst, for your analysis this morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, take a look at the top gainers. Not your usual suspect, I would say. Well, at a time like this, we do expect this. And single digits and sometimes half digits gains we see. Let's look at the top losers right there and see the reds there. There you have more of the numbers right there. Born Again is leading for a second straight day. But, well, there's a time to win, there's a time to lose. So this may be a time, maybe not to lose, but to grab the opportunity if you have the heart for it. If you have the heart to jump on the cryptos train, then you might, as some of our analysts have said, especially for Bitcoin, because of the halving of next year, perhaps you will get your own gains. But, well, that's it for Business Morning for the week. 5 days and 55 minutes of current and relevant business. I can only imagine the knowledge packed in that I've gotten, and I believe you have gotten. And this will help to make solid decisions, you know, at the end of the day. Thank you so much for being a part of it. I'll be back at 1:30. 1:30 will give you updates from the world of business on Business Incorporated. So miss me for a couple of hours. I'll be back. I'm Ini John McCracken.